Hello BookTube, hello friends, welcome to Lizzie Faye Loves Books. I'm Elizabeth, and today's video is going to be part 4 of my 4-part series featuring books with fantastic titles, in my opinion. So I have done 3 other videos in this series. Previously I did a video featuring 15 nonfiction books from my shelves that I think have incredible titles, and then I did another video featuring 15 cozy mysteries from my shelves, again, that have fantastic titles. And then I have also done a video featuring 10 middle grade books, not from my shelves, but my favorite titles in middle grade fiction. So now this is everything else. When I got the idea for this video, I was thinking, oh, I'll just do one video and I'll show maybe my top 10 or 15 book titles. And then as I started brainstorming, going through my Goodreads, looking through my shelves, I realized that I had quite a list. So that was when I decided to divide them up into categories, make it a series. And so the contents of what I'm going to show in this video are all fiction, mostly women's fiction because that's what I tend to collect, but I've sort of divided this video into subcategories. So the first 4 are books that I don't own. I have owned a copy of at least 2 of them in the past that I have passed on to other people, but these are books that I think have excellent titles. Some of them are going to be very mainstream books that you have most definitely heard of if you've watched any BookTube videos at all, and they're books that I think have amazing titles. Then the next 16 are books from my own shelves that have titles that stood out to me, that made me want to buy them or acquire them, or they are from authors that I collect and I have chosen their best titles, and that was part of what drew me to that author, and just a variety of things like that. Then I'm going to have a little bonus section at the end featuring 5 books that I think have excellent titles. In fact, the titles drew me to them and I've read them, but I don't think that the book itself measured up to the title. They're not books that I hated, but I just didn't feel like that the book was as good as the title. So we'll get to those at the end. Normally I don't like to do things that are negative, so I'm not gonna like trash the books, but you know, like I said, they just didn't measure up, in my opinion. So let's get started. Now the first 4, like I said, are books that I don't own, and I think that you will have heard of most of these, and I think you'll agree with me that the titles are very good. So I am doing this video on my old camera so that I can edit in the pictures. I'm sorry the quality is not as good as on my phone like I've done the other 3 videos, but anyway, I filmed it originally on my phone and I just really wanted to be able to put in the pictures for the ones that I didn't have. So here we go. So the first one I have on the list is a classic. It's The Celebrated Jumping Frog of Calaveras County by Mark Twain. Now I had not heard of this short story until I read The Storied Life of A.J. Fickery, and I didn't really give it much thought until I went back and read A.J. Fickery a second time for a book club, and then I went and looked up all of the short stories that are featured in the title headings of each chapter, and then I became aware of all of these short stories and how they related to the book chapter and everything. So anyway, this particular story by Mark Twain was one of the chapter headings, and I thought it was a really cute story, and the title is just amazing. It's so wordy, you know, it's got the alliteration, and it's just really my kind of title. The next one I have on the list is one that is probably the most read book of anything I'm going to show you today. It's probably the most popular book of anything I'm going to show you today, and it's The Guernsey Literary and Potato Peel Pie Society by Marianne Schaefer and Annie Barrows. And most of you have probably read it because it is a BookTube darling. It is a book that is well loved by so many people. I have read it twice. I loved it. The first time I read it was for book club several years ago, and then later on I heard people talking about it on BookTube, and I decided I would read it again because I didn't remember enough of it. So I read it in print the second time, and I really got a lot more out of it that way because it's an epistolary novel. So It was just more interesting, I think, to see it in print. And the title is simply amazing. It's one that you won't ever forget. Now, you might leave out a word or two here and there, but when you hear the title, you immediately know exactly what book that someone is talking about. Another title on my list is actually a classic science fiction book, and I think the title is so unique, it really makes you interested to know what the book is about. And the book is Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep? Of course, we know the movie adaptation is called Blade Runner, and I watched that movie several years ago, but then I only have listened to the book itself on audio last year or year before. And it wasn't my favorite book, but I do think the title definitely makes sense for the book, and it's such a unique sounding title that I think it's a great choice for that book. The next one I have on the list is The Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime by Mark Haddon. This is another title that is unforgettable because it's just so unique. And the book itself is very unique as well. It's about a boy with autism who is trying to solve the mystery of who killed his neighbor's dog. It is a difficult book at times because the father, I think, treats his son abominably, and I have a child with autism, and I certainly understand that it is definitely possible and easy to get angry and to lose your patience, most definitely. But I hated the fact that the father cursed at his child. I just think that's so horrible, and it made me not like the book for that reason, but for many other reasons I liked the book. And if you haven't ever read it, I think it's something that is definitely worth reading. So anyway, you'll never forget the title once you hear it, and it's definitely worth picking up. Okay, so moving on to books that are on my shelf. Now, some of these I've read, some of them I haven't, and I'm going to start with one that I haven't read, but I have read one book by this author, and I think of all of his titles, this is one that is the most interesting, and it's also the only book by him that I have on my shelf, but it's by Frederick Backman. I have read A Man Called Ove, but I've not read any of the others. This one is My Grandmother Asked Me to Tell You She's Sorry. That is just a great title. I love wordy, descriptive titles, and I think this is really a fun title. The book sounds like it might be a little bit sad. I'm not really sure, but it is about a child whose grandmother passes away, and the grandmother leaves letters that the child is supposed to distribute to people to apologize for all of the crazy things that she has done in her life. So that's really all I know about it, and I got that from reading the back of the book. It sounds like a really good book, and this type of title really pulls me in. And speaking of wordy titles, let's move on to one of my absolute favorite authors. She's got two titles that I think are especially great. Now, all of her books are amazing, but these two titles really stand out to me, and I want to share them with you on this video. Now, of course, the author is Fannie Flagg, and the first book that I think is really her best title is The All-Girl Filling Station's Last Reunion. This book has a dual timeline. Really, it's set in more modern day, and they are reminiscing about World War II and the women pilots who had a function and served in World War II, and I think it is an excellent book. It's been a long time since I have read this. I listened to it on audio, and at some point I want to go back and read all of Fannie Flagg's books in print because I really have forgotten so many details from this, but I do remember that it was an excellent book. It's more on the lighter side of World War II fiction because Fannie Flagg, of course, is such a humorist, and I think that this is a fantastic book, and I would highly recommend it. And then the other one by Fannie Flagg that I want to show you is not my favorite book by Fannie Flagg, but again, this is one of her best titles. It's probably her most famous book because there is a movie adaptation, and it is Fried Green Tomatoes at the Whistle Stop Cafe. And it is a very good book, but of course you guys know I love Redbird Christmas better and Can't Wait to Get to Heaven, and the list goes on with amazing Fannie Flagg books. But this one is really good and definitely a title that pulls me in. Alright, now I have another author where I want to show you 3 different books by her. I was first drawn to this author because I saw this particular book at a book sale, and the title really pulled me in. It's Patty Jane's House of Curl by Lorna Landvik. Now, at that time, I had not heard of Lorna Landvik, and I think I mentioned her to my sister, and she said, oh, I just read a book by her. It's called Oh My Stars. So I started looking for that book in used bookstores, and I began to find other books by her that I started collecting. And one of the other ones that I collected by her is Angry Housewives Eating Bonbons. So I think this is a really fun title. It's maybe not one I would choose to sit and read in public, because it does sound a little bit silly, but I've heard that the book is really excellent. It is about a group of women in a book club. It spans a time of 30 years, and at some point I do want to read it, and it's definitely one of Lorna Landvik's more unique, fun, outstanding titles. However, she outdid herself this year with her brand new book, because by far this is probably my favorite title of all of these books I'm going to show you today. Chronicles of a Radical Hag with Recipes. And what makes this even better is that I'm reading this right now and I love it. It is about a newspaper office, and there is a woman there who I believe is in her 80s. She's been writing for the paper. She's been writing a human interest column for many years, since the 1960s, and she has had a stroke in the beginning of the book, and while she is in the hospital, they have decided to start reprinting her earliest columns, and it just goes from there, and the book is really enjoyable. I am loving it so far. So I have a couple of last minute additions to this list. I hadn't decided when I was putting this together. I first thought I was just going to maybe do 15 books total, and then it started turning into more. And one of the books I kept coming back to has a very simple one-word title, but it's so unique, and I just wanted to include it here. I've had this on my TBR for a while, and I have it on my 20 by 20 challenge on my list of standalone books to read during this challenge, and I didn't even know till just a few days ago that it says it's a Frankenstein retelling. So that makes it sound even more interesting. And the book is Pigtopia by Kitty Fitzgerald. So I don't know anything about it other than that, but it sounds kind of dark and deep, and I am really looking forward to reading it. It's not a very long book, and hopefully I will get it read by the end of 2020, which is when my 20 by 20 challenge officially ends. And that's not the only pig related book on my shelves. It doesn't really have to do with this video, but I also have a book by Kinky Friedman called The Christmas Pig, which is a very unique story. And so along that same vein, I was looking on my shelves, and up here, these are some of my husband's books. And there was a book up here that caught my eye. I was looking for one or two more books to include in this video, and I thought, swine not include this in this video, even though it's not my book. This title is just so fun, and it's by Jimmy Buffett. It is about a Southern family who brings their pet pig to a 4-star hotel in New York City. The mother, I believe, has been hired as a chef, and so they are trying to hide this pig. It just sounds hilarious. I don't know if my husband's read this. I'm assuming that he has, but I think I may read it. I had never really paid much attention to it before, but the title really does stand out, and it sounds like a great book. So the next book is not a pig book, but it is an animal-related book. It's by Dave Barry. It's a Christmas book, The Shepherd, the Angel, and Walter the Christmas Miracle Dog. This book is really cute. It's delightful. Dave Barry is such a funny guy. He's a Florida author, and this book is full of photos and illustrations, and it's double-spaced, and it'll take you all of a minute to read it, but it's super cute, and I really do recommend it. It is a lot of fun. This takes place in 1960. I don't know if this is autobiographical, if this is an actual story that Dave Barry remembers from his childhood, or if he just made it up, but it's definitely a cute book, and I would recommend it. Okay, so the next two have something to do with letters and language, and the first one I want to mention is probably one you have heard of. I have heard this talked about on several different booktube channels. It's a book that I have not read, but it sounds so clever. It is Ella Minnow P by Mark Dunn. The premise just sounds really great. It has to do with letters and missing letters and all of that, and it just sounds like it's such a cleverly written book that I am excited to read it. And of course, what drew me to it initially was the title, and I found out later that it's really a good book. The next one is probably not about language, but the title, you'll see what I mean when I show you the title. I found this at a book sale within the last year or two, and it just sounds really fun. And when I got it home, I discovered that it's actually the third in a trilogy, and the other two books in the trilogy have also very good titles. So the book I have is Southern as a Second Language by Lisa Patton. I love this title. Just the whole idea of speaking Southern I think is awesome. Now, I grew up in Oklahoma, so I spoke country, not Southern. But there's so many things about the South that I love, and it's just such a fun title. So the first book in the trilogy is called Whistlin' Dixie in a Nor'easter, and it is about a Memphis belle who moves to Vermont, and that first book is her story of life in Vermont as a Southern girl. Then the second book is called Yankee Doodle Dixie. That almost makes it sound like she went to New York for that book, but I don't know. I haven't read the description of that one. And then in this book, she has come back home to Memphis to start over, and she has a new love interest and a new job, and it just sounds like a really fun trilogy. So I'm definitely going to be looking for the first book. I know my library has them, but if I can find them at library sales, then I will definitely pick them up. So the next two are food related. If you saw my Bookish Boxes and Buzzwords tag, you know that I am drawn to books with food in the title. So when I saw this, I was like, yes, I need that. This is called When in Doubt, Add Butter by Beth Harbison. I didn't know anything about it, but the title really drew me in, and when I got it home and looked at it, it is a standalone book, and it's about a chef who is a private chef. She has 6 clients, and she's done with romance, and she's happy in her life, and that's where she wants to stay. Well, I'm going to assume that romance will find her whether she wants it or not, and it sounds like a really cute book, and I love the title. The next one ranks up there with Chronicles of a Radical Hag, but for different reasons. It is probably in my top 2 favorite titles in this whole series. So the book I want to show you is book 2 in the trilogy. This is the first one that I saw. It was on Book Outlet in 2015, and I knew immediately that I had to have this book. I absolutely love the title. And so I realized that it was book 2 in a trilogy, and I saw that Book Outlet also had, I think, like only 5 copies left of the first book. So I ordered them both. I eventually found book 3, and they've been sitting on my shelves for all this time, and I've been wanting to read them, but it's one of those cases where I own them now, so there's no great rush. They are on my 20 by 20 Stack the Series challenge. I really want to read these books. I think they are lightly faith-based. They take place in a small town in Georgia, and let me just show you the title that really pulled me in. Mater Biscuit by Julie L. Cannon. Is that not the best sounding title you have ever heard? Oh my goodness, I think I like this one just as much as Chronicles of a Radical Hag, and for different reasons. The title just sounds so good, and it is about a family in a small town in Georgia, and the back of the book reads like a country song. I mean, it is a country soap opera, all the things that it says about this family. So anyway, it just sounds great. Now the first book also has a really good title. This title by itself would not maybe stand out to me if I didn't already know about this one, but still a great title. The first book is True Love and Homegrown Tomatoes. The trilogy is called the Homegrown Trilogy by Julie L. Cannon. The third book I have here, it is called Those Pearly Gates. And I'm super excited about reading all of these. So if any of you have ever heard of these, or if you have them and you want to read them with me, let me know. I need some encouragement to pick these up already and read one. Okay, so the next one is a title that in and of itself is not all that noteworthy, but it did catch my eye in our little free library recently, and for a variety of reasons, it just kept pulling me in. So the actual book is called Charlotte Leaves the Light On. It's by Annette Smith, and the book caught my attention, so I picked it up, and I saw that it is published by Moody Publishers. So I thought, okay, that probably means it's a Christian book. So it was starting to sound even better. And then I looked, and it says over the top, Coming Home to Ruby Prairie. And I thought, Ruby Prairie. Doesn't that sound like a place I would love to go? And it sounded like from this title that maybe this was not the first in a series. And so I searched through the whole Little Free Library just to see if there were any others, and I couldn't find any, but I brought it home anyway, and I looked it up, and yes, it is the third in a series, and the whole series sounds really good. The first book is called A Town Called Ruby Prairie, and the second book is called A New Day at Tanglewood. So, again, those particular titles definitely check off some boxes for me, but then I looked up the author and looked at some of her other titles, and she has a book that checks off all the boxes for me. It's called Watermelon Days and Firefly Nights, Heartwarming Scenes from Small Town Life. That is my jam. I am all over that. Oh my goodness, that sounds like the book for me. And to make it even better, I looked it up on our library website, and I saw that it doesn't mean just any old small town. It's a small town in Texas. Okay, you have sold me. I mean, you had me at watermelon. So I'm just over the moon excited about getting a hold of that book and reading it. So anyway, I'm excited that I found this author. This series sounds like it's going to be great, but the title I'm really including in this video is Watermelon Days and Firefly Nights. Okay, so the next one is going to kind of segue me into another topic for a future video, because I realized when I was going through my Goodreads list and my shelves getting ready for this video that I am really drawn to books that are set in diners and cafes and eateries, and if they're in a small town, that's even better, and if the title is quirky and fun, then I'm all in. So this is just one example of many books, and so there will definitely be a video in the future on this type of book. But this is one in particular that stands out to me as being especially good as far as the title goes. Now, I haven't read this book, but the book is called The Supremes at Earl's All You Could Eat. It's by Edward Kelsey Moore, and from the description, it sounds like it is about a group of women who meet weekly or monthly at Earl's, and it spans a period of time where they are meeting periodically, and we learn about them and their lives and what's going on in their lives, and it just sounds like a really good book, and I absolutely love the title. So of the books I previously mentioned, I had only read about 4 of the physical books I showed you, and then of course the 4 that I didn't have to show you. And now this last group of books are going to be books that I've read that I think have excellent titles, but I just don't feel like that the book was as good as the title. So I've got one of them, and I'll have to show you pictures for the other 4. The one that I own is The Readers of Broken Wheel Recommend. Now, I didn't hate this book. It was just awkward. There were just some places in the book and some things that happened that were kind of cringy, and I like quirky characters, but these were a little bit even too quirky for my taste. The premise is that there's a woman who has come from Sweden to the United States to meet a pen pal for the first time, and when she gets there, she has just missed her funeral. She didn't even know that she had died, and so she ends up staying there. She moves into her house. I believe that the woman didn't have any other heirs or family, so the whole town encouraged her to move in there. She ends up starting a bookstore with this woman's books, and it kind of goes from there. We get to know the town. The town is called Broken Wheel, and it's not a bad book. I didn't hate it, but I just really wanted to love it. I feel like the title is so amazing that the book should be amazing too, and I just didn't really love it. Alright, so another one that I read for book club, I'll show you a picture. This is a book that I didn't hate, but I thought that the title made it seem like it was going to be much more enjoyable than it was. And the reason I didn't like it is because there was just too much drinking and partying and everything, and I guess that was the idea. They were celebrating the life of their friend. The book is called Annie Freeman's Fabulous Traveling Funeral, and it's about, obviously, a traveling funeral. This woman has died and left in her will that she wants, I think, her 4 best friends to get together and take her ashes around to all of these places and scatter part of her ashes in all of these places. And these 4 of her friends don't know each other. They're all from important, significant times in her life. So the woman who died wants to bring her friends together, and it is a bonding time, and there are some really good parts to the story. I just got distracted by all of the partying and the carrying on that they were doing, which, you know, is not up my alley. So for that reason, it wasn't my favorite book, but I think it's a great title. Another book I've read that I think is a fantastic title, and it's well loved by a lot of people, is The Absolutely True Diary of a Part-Time Indian. Now, I wanted to love this, and I liked it, but, you know, there's a lot of boy humor and all of that, so it's really not the book for me. But it wasn't a bad book, and I think it's a great title. And then number 4 is The Sweetness at the Bottom of the Pie. Now, I love the book, I love the title, but I don't get what the title has to do with the book. I know there's a poem in there somewhere that says the title of the book, but I still don't really get the title and how it relates to the book. I don't know if if it's a literary reference or something, I don't know. But it was the title that made me read the book. And so for that reason, I think it's a great title. It's definitely one that you remember. So, you know, it is what it is. And then the last one is a book that I really did not like. I was just looking back on Goodreads to see who the author is, and I realized that I had rated it 3 stars. I kind of remembered not liking it a lot, and I thought that I had rated it even lower than that. But anyway, the book is The Divine Secrets of the Ya-Ya Sisterhood by Rebecca Wells. I listened to an abridged audio version of it, so maybe I would have liked it more if I had listened to the whole thing. But again, there was just a lot of activity that was just not things that I partake in, and so I didn't find the book particularly entertaining. There were some aspects to it. I think the mother-daughter relationship, I think that was an important relationship that they developed, and, you know, it definitely had its good points, but overall it wasn't a book that I really enjoyed. And from that title, I wanted it to be amazing. So anyway, and now I don't want to confuse that title with The Yada Yada Prayer Group, which is by Nita Jackson, and I think I will love that book. I should give that one honorable mention because I think all the books in that series have super cute titles, and I should have included it in this list. I have all of that series on my shelf, and I think that that is a series that I'm going to enjoy. So anyway, let's wrap this up. Let me know if you have read any of these books, or if you have any other books that you think have amazing titles that I should have included on this list. Of course, I know that I have surely missed some really great ones because I just don't know about them, or maybe they're books that are not on my radar because they don't really check off any of my check boxes or buzzwords or, you know, anything like that. So I don't know, let me know what you think about these titles, if you agree with me that they're good titles, or if there's any that you think you don't like, and let's just chat about them in the comments. So this is of course a very subjective and opinionated video. These are of course titles that, in my opinion, are really great book titles. So that's all I have for this video. I would love to chat with you in the comments. I hope you're having a great day. Read a good book, and God bless you.